Call the meeting to order. Would everybody please stand? Oh, sorry. No, not yet. Forgot. It also always helps to read the agenda. Roll call.
Laura Wigand here.
Pete Bauman.
Dolores Blackburn.
Bill Stram.
Elise McMath.
Now, would everybody please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's all. It's loud.
If there's no discussion, I'd like to have a motion to approve the agenda format.
So moved.
Second.
Laura seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have minutes from 3 meetings, 3 previous meetings, which I'm going to take one at a time, since they're rather lengthy, in case there's any questions. The first one, March 11th meeting, any discussion, or could I have a motion?
I motion to approve March 11th meetings.
Pete seconded.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The second set of minutes was from the April 8th meeting, which I think Pete was not in attendance that
Right,
day.
and that's still paying dividends.
Could I have a motion to approve the April 8th meeting?
I make the motion to approve the April
Second.
8th meeting.
You can't second it.
I'll second
I'm
the
still
minutes.
not here.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And the last one was the May 6th meeting. Everybody was here, so could I have a motion to approve the May 6th meeting minutes?
I make a motion to approve the May 6th meeting
Second.
minutes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? New business, there's none. The old business, from the April 8th meeting, we ended the meeting tabling this matter until a later date for board members to have some extra time to do some research. So that's how we're here today. And this, for those of you who weren't here, application from Greg and Emily Gentry appealing a decision from the zoning administrator dated February 4, 2025, which provided a zoning determination concerning 542 Jefferson Avenue that stated the accessory building is a legal, non-conforming use as an accessory dwelling unit, also known as an ADU, and short-term rentals are not permissible in the ADU. And secondly, this lot does not have 2 principal houses, but a main house and an accessory dwelling unit. The applicant is seeking to have 2 primary residences on this property. So we'll pick up right where we left off.
So you do need a motion to take it off the table.
Can I have a motion to take it off the table?
I'll motion to take it off the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay, so moving forward, we pick up right where we left off, and I'll give it a brief opportunity for either the zoning administrator or the applicant to make a few comments.
So again, in any motion that you make today, it needs to state very clearly if you are going to uphold the appeal, why you're upholding the appeal, or if you are not upholding the appeal, again, state in the law exactly where in the zoning ordinance sections that I interpreted wrongly, and how that was interpreted incorrectly. So I just want to make it clear when you make your motion. I'll do my best to assist you in whatever motion you advance forward to ensure it contains all the necessary components for your vote. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. It's good to be with you all again. Thank you again for the privilege of making this matter, come before you and giving some time for discussion, some further research on your end. I know not all of you were here last time, so it's a pleasure to meet you for the first time as well. As you review the minutes or look at the tape, we made presentation outlining what Greg and Emily Gentry believe to be justifications or reasons for overturning, in part, the zoning administrator's decisions. As you remember, it's a 7-page determination, multiple points of determination, and it is not our intention, it's not the Gentry's intention to overturn or appeal the entire decision. But in essence, the request is by the Gentrys to be able to rent out the cottage in the rear of the property, as we discussed, as a short-term rental. And as they stated, and I'll just reiterate, but as they stated toward the end of the public hearing last time, that they're willing to only rent the cottage and then not the main house. So that way, there wouldn't be at any given time both structures being rented as a short-term rental. It was mentioned that that was more or less the concern, or one of the major concerns of the town, of town management, of the zoning administrator, that this would open up the opportunity to be able to have a short-term rental on multiple structures on a given property. And so I believe it was Ms. Emily Gentry toward the end of the hearing had offered or proffered to only have the short-term rental in the cottage. And there had been some discussion. I'll mention this as well because I know you had an intervening meeting last week where the town manager presented. And I've had an opportunity also to speak to Councilor Sterling, who's advising, I believe, the manager, maybe also other parts of the zoning administration on this matter. And the town manager's expressions to me and then both at the hearing last week were consistent with what the attorney, Mr. Sterling, mentioned to me yesterday. And if you recall, I gave what I believe are 3 or 4 different opportunities or justifications for overturning the decision, at least in part. We discussed the authority a little bit, and I know that the town manager spoke to that specific procedural issue, whether it had to be sort of an all or nothing approach, but that there was an opportunity in the procedure, in the rule book, to modify, amend, overturn, or approve in whole or in part. And so the request from the Gentrys is simply a modification in part in your decision to allow them to have the short-term rental in the cottage, whether you deem it an accessory dwelling unit or not. And we presented what we believe to be the 3 or 4 reasons or justifications you'd have in doing that. One was that there was testimony presented and there were some letters that were sent in from adjacent property owners and residents who had some experience and history in the area, who had provided testimony that there was a history of varying levels of rental at that cottage, some long-term. What they said was, they didn't use the word short-term rental, but less than, monthly rentals, whether that was a day or a week, is still a bit uncertain, but nonetheless a history of rentals in varying degrees before there was ever a short-term rental ordinance, and especially before the new short-term rental ordinance. The situation here, if you remember, and especially this is the first time hearing this, the situation on this property is extremely unique, and there was some concern about precedent setting, and I believe there remains to be the case, some concern about what a decision does in terms of setting a precedent for other properties. This is a very unique property. It's a very unique situation where the Gentrys, Emily and Greg, they bought a property seeking to invest in the area, seeking to call this home after Virginia Beach had been home for them for a long time. I was just talking to Greg. He'd been in Virginia Beach, his family, for hundreds of years. So relocating from there is a very big deal for him and for their family. Investing here on a local level, volunteering with the community, they inherited, if you will, a situation on a property with varying kinds of violations and houses being torn down and being reconstructed, the problems of which they did not cause, but they're seeking to rectify. They're rebuilding the main house. They're rectifying the situations on the property, and they're curing a lot of the problems that they more or less walked into. And so for them to not be able to have a short-term rental on the cottage, but only on the main house, we mentioned on its face, is a bit absurd from a reasonableness standpoint, just looking at it, but it also presents a major challenge to them and a hardship from a financial decision for them to move up here and invest with their family. We also mentioned that there was a precedent. I believe you were going to research this a bit. 2 streets down, 2 intersections down at Madison and Jefferson, there was another house that we had talked about, 2 houses on a lot that had been previous to the subdivision ordinance. So even though it had a common owner, it predated the allowance or prohibition on being able to subdivide that property. So it's actually 2 lots that are as large as the lot that the Gentrys have, but it does have 2 structures on it, one larger than the other. The smaller one gets rented out short-term. I believe the large one does as well. And so there's a bit of a precedent in that sense, a couple of blocks down that we discussed. But I think finally the point that we had made, and I believe the letter that you probably received from the Civic League probably sums this up, that they have overwhelming support from adjacent property owners, other residents, that the thing that they're trying to do to operate a short-term rental in the cottage and not in the main house is consistent with what dozens of neighbors have said they would like to see done on the Gentry's property. And it also, doing that, the result of them having a short-term rental on the cottage and not on the main house, it reduces, it gets rid of issues of traffic, noise, volume, the things that the ordinance, the short-term rental ordinance, is designed to kind of keep at bay, to limit the commercial footprint that short-term rentals bring. So that's a bit of a recap of what we had discussed. I know that your public hearing had ended and that you moved into discussion. I just wanted to recap a lot of what we had brought up the last time, and then any intervening kind of notices or mentions. I think they're all important, but then finally, the town manager brought up the presumption on the part of the zoning administrator. It's a long 7-page zoning determination, so the request from them is a modification. I know that the stated request is, as the town manager mentioned in the last presentation, but in general, the request for the Gentrys at their property is to be able to have a short-term rental, which the zoning administrator says that they can, but at the cottage instead of the main house. So, thank you.
I just want one point of clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not a cottage, it's an accessory dwelling unit. And according to the zoning, the ADU should not be designed or built to look like a house. So just a point of clarification, it's not a cottage.
Sure. They refer to it, the cottage isn't an official zoning determination or definition, but they refer to it as a cottage. I know in kind of common parlance with houses and the market itself and business terms, they refer to it as the cottage. So if you've heard testimony or seen emails, it usually refers to the cottage. So I don't mean to make a zoning distinction there, but just when you hear that term, it's referring to the smaller house. So yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, any comments?
I have some comments.
Let's
I
have a motion. Isn't that the important part of have a motion?
Oh, sorry.
Have a motion and then not vote on it, but we can then discuss it as a board, okay?
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to deny the appeal and uphold the zoning determination.
I'll second it. I'm here.
Okay. Laura, you want to move forward?
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to, I did a little research. I wanted to do a little more research. I know that's really not my job. I'm not an attorney, but I just wanted to have a clear conscience. So I wanted to kind of see where and how this occurred, where there's like 2 addresses for this one lot, because most ADUs don't have their own address. So I just wanted to kind of see that. So I went to the county and pulled their property cards. And it's very interesting because I think that may be where the 2 separate addresses came from, because they do have 2 separate property cards on this. However, they're both on the same map ID number. So it obviously is not a subdivided lot. It is one lot, but they are recognizing it as building 1 and building 2. So it's a tough situation. It's been a little convoluted in the record keeping, I guess, of this property. So that being said, it is one property. So it's a tough decision. I just wanted to, to do my own research, even though I probably didn't have to, but I wanted to do my own research, so fire me for doing that. But it's a tough decision because this is, I don't know if the county keeps, even though they keep long records, I don't know if they keep the best records, because my house still on the deed says it was built 10 years earlier than it actually was. So I can't always believe what comes from the county, but I do believe that maybe the county is the one who kind of gave that address to the separate building. That's all I have to say.
Pete, you have comments?
My inclination on reading this before I didn't show up was leaning towards denying it. But I'm sure that if I had been here to hear the arguments, I wasn't sure whether I was trying to phrase this right. It's not the courage of my convictions, it's more like the conviction of my determination. I don't know if I would have stuck with that, in other words, what I'm saying. And another thing, just legally speaking, when we're talking about the level of proof required, or the level of deference, it's a presumption is the standard is essentially 5149. It's a preponderance of the evidence, it's called. And it's not a very high standard. The next standard would be clear and convincing, which is like medical malpractice, and then of course you have beyond reasonable doubt for criminal. And so I'm just throwing that out there. And well, that's it for me.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Elise?
Like most of you, I'm sure we went home after Tuesday, and, well, at least I did, and had to sit with what the town manager had said to us. And so I certainly understand that our role is not to resolve policy issues, but to interpret the zoning ordinance and decide whether the zoning administrator applied it correctly. To your point, Madam Chair, about the ADU, and that it shouldn't resemble a single-family home. I think that when the town approved the construction of the second story, that the building's character changed, and I personally don't believe that it meets the ordinance's definition of an ADU. I don't think it fits now into any clear defined category, and I don't think it's our job to solve that issue. The appellant didn't create that situation, and they purchased the property in good faith after the fact. And I think that, to John Hosey's point, that the ambiguity should be resolved by town council and not us, and that our question is simply to say whether the zoning administrator's determination was correct. I don't believe that this structure fits into the category of an ADU based on our zoning ordinance's definition of an ADU.
This appeal was based on an accessory dwelling unit is a legal non-conforming use. So that kind of falls into the realm of the two-story because it's legal non-conforming. Everything was before the current zoning ordinances for that have been approved for ADUs and short-term rentals. So I can't disagree with the there is an ADU on there. It's an accessory to the main dwelling, and short-term rentals are not allowed in accessory dwelling units per ordinance.
I thought there was 3 points that were important. One was that there'd been some discussion about subdividing the property, and under the ordinances, that would not be permissible. The 2 lots are, I mean, the lot is not big enough. If it was subdivided, we would be creating 2 non-conforming lots. The building right now has 2 principal residents on it, which is not permitted under the, I'm sorry, the applicant was hoping to identify them as 2 principal residents, which is not permitted underneath the zoning ordinance. And the third one was that it is an ADU, which I think we've all pretty much agreed to that, and short-term rentals are not permitted under the zoning ordinance in an ADU. So I think for those 3 reasons, I would uphold the administrator's decision. Also, the applicant can still rent the ADU, just not as a short-term rental. So it's not, there would still be, they could still possibly have income out of that building. Just, you know, a different lease agreement, you know, 30 days or more rather than a shorter one. So.
I just wanted to say too, I'm kind of on the fence of really recognizing that as an ADU. However, we're not voting on that. We're not voting on whether it's an ADU or not. We're voting on how, you know, our administrator ruled on it. And in that case, I would have to agree that she ruled correctly. And it may be up to the owners to see if they can take it to town, like Lisa was saying, take it to town council, since this is such a unique property, and see if it can be whatever they can do. But again, it was up to the buyer when they bought the property to really make sure that that was a second property. Whether the realtor said, hey, there's two primary residences, it's still up to the buyer to really confirm that, that truth, because realtors can say whatever they want to say. Yeah, I'm ready to roll.
I am agreeing with what you all are saying. It feels different from how we talked about the third application we heard at the last hearing.
April 8th.
That with the Dreams by the Water. I know that's a totally separate thing. It's just, I'm trying to understand our collective logic, and it feels different, but I hear you.
This is an appeal of her, of the administrator's decision versus they're asking for a variance. So it's two completely different
So it should be different.
things that we have to
I
do.
guess not within the considerations of an appeal versus a variance, but to the point of the realtor and, you know, the hardship and all those sorts of, I know that those aren't factors that we consider, we're considering
Right. we
Katie's
can't-
determination. I'm just saying, at a 10,000 foot level, I'm just trying to understand our collective logic, but I hear you all.
Okay.
So I'd like to just add a comment here. This is a little bit of a history lesson, but I've been on the Planning Commission for 13 years. And ADUs were not even thought of back then. We had a rewrite of the comprehensive plan, and we talked about housing because there was workforce housing, and it was decided that maybe accessory dwelling units would be a good fit for people that need housing here on a long-term basis. The town council didn't agree with that to begin with, but we put it in the comp plan. And then when we had the rewrite of the comp plan, which is our current comp plan, it was stated in there again, and then the town council finally approved accessory dwelling units. So that's just a little bit of history.
Thank you. Call for a vote? All those in favor? Oh, I said we had the motion, right?
Yes.
Laura?
Well, we already have the motion, so, yes, so I will second.
It's already said.
It's
Oh.
already-
Okay, then I agree to deny the appeal.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance is a whopper, but I'm the same. I don't go with the administration.
Elise?
May I ask a question, or is that not well received at the moment?
You can ask a question.
Okay. To the point about legal, not, and I suppose this would be for you, Katie. When I was reading your determination about the legal non-conforming use as an accessory dwelling unit, the legal non-conforming use is accessory dwelling, and then there's a separate definition for an ADU, correct or incorrect? Because it seems like they were kind of semantically distinguished in the zoning ordinance.
Sure. Any use has to be determined, was it applicable under the current zoning, or did it exist prior to when that zoning ordinance came into effect? And in this case, the secondary structure or accessory dwelling unit was in existence well before the town had zoning. So that makes it a legal non-conforming use. I think then some of the question that arose in the research of this is, how was that structure really being used? Yes, there was always a principal home on the property, then there's this accessory structure on the property. How was it being utilized by the various owners over that time? Yes, through research, we indicated it was being rented out, again, for various periods of time. I will note, there's no question that it could have been for a couple of days, probably a couple of weeks, more likely several months at a time, because there used to be a garage on that block as well. So I think this was somewhat some housing for that garage unit back in the 60s. But anyway, with that said, most importantly, when you bring it forward, when this property was purchased by the Dohertys, who purchased this in 2018, they specifically retained their living quarters to be in the accessory structure while they were renovating the house. And that continued until they sold it in 2024 to the Gentrys. So that alone, forget all the rest of the history, that alone removes the legal nonconforming use of any short-term rental capacity on that property, because the Dohertys extinguished it by staying in it as its residence their entire time there while they were renovating their principal house. So again, a legal nonconforming use is only continuing in its existence for 2 years, and then it extinguishes itself if it no longer is continuing.
So that was kind of like the crux of what I was asking is, or I felt like in your determination, you were saying that when the zoning ordinance was adopted, it was within that realm of a legal non-conforming use, and then based on the way that the property was being used, it would have expired, so to speak?
The accessory dwelling use does not expire, just in terms of, I think, some of the mechanics. Was it being used also as a short-term rental capacity? Because one of the things that is very clear in the Planning Commission history on the ADU issue alone showed that sort of research. Short-term rental has been occurring in this community for a long time. It may not have ever been formally recognized through the zoning ordinance, but it has occurred. Only within definitely the last 6 years has the terminology of short-term rental become part of our vernacular, I think.
Sure.
I think before people were referring to it as vacation homes, tourist homes, rooms for rent within homes itself. There were various concepts of how it was being utilized in our community. It may not have been captured in the zoning ordinance before.
So my last question then is, given the way that the Dohertys and the Gentrys have been using the smaller structure. My understanding was that they were living in that structure while the larger structure had been demolished.
It was being renovated, and through missteps of the prior property owner, they allowed their contractor to demolish it. And they paid a penalty for that.
Sure, but when Emily and Greg moved into the house, it was their primary residence because there wasn't another structure on the house.
The
On the
house was
lot.
in the midst of being renovated, that's correct. And they chose to live in the accessory dwelling unit while they continued those renovations,
So
yes.
there was like an active permit or something going on while they were living in the smaller lot?
There's
The
been an
smaller-
active building permit on the principal residence since the violation order was enforced on the Dohertys, yes.
Okay. I was just trying to like wrap my head around how the smaller lot was being used, to Bill's point about like the not legal.
It's not a smaller lot, it's just a
Smaller
regular lot.
Building, sorry.
Yes.
I'm getting tripped
Okay.
up with my word, smaller building, is
Sure.
what I meant to say. I know it's one lot. Okay, thank you for answering my questions.
Sure.
All right, sorry.
It's okay.
I just want to vote in good conscience. So I will vote, in favor of Bill's motion.
Okay.
So I stand by my deny the appeal.
Saying it a little differently, I uphold the zoning administrator's decision. The applicant was seeking 2 primary residences on the property. It's not permitted within the zoning ordinances of the town of Cape Charles.
And I vote to deny the appeal.
And I too.
You already voted in favor of it.
He denied it. He denied the appeal. Uh-huh.
That's just my eloquence.
So the vote is 4-1 in favor of upholding the zoning administrator's decision. Are there any other matters?
Wait, who's the one?
The
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. I'm so confused.
The next meeting of this Board of Zoning Appeals is Tuesday, June 10th at 10 o'clock. Have a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.